Mm. Okay.
Okay, so perhaps we can start because it's 6:30 now, and so it's a meeting dedicated to Carol Kinne, who is one of the artists of the show, and who is now in the gallery with two works, beautiful little triptych from 1980, and with a collaborative work she did with Bob, with mask, and the name of the work is Blue Dots. It's a full-size portrait and a beautiful photo. And perhaps we can. I thought this evening to propose, as Robert Huot is here and Scott MacDonald, and it's a privilege for us and a luck to hear them about Carol. And so would you speak about Carol, Bob, and then Scott?
Yes, I'll start if you wish.
Okay.
Anne-Marie Agi.
Carol was born December 14th, 1942. And it was, she was born in New Hartford, Scott MacDonald's home territory. Her family had a small machinery dealership in Clinton, which is a town very close to New Hartford. She went to school in New Hartford in the building that's now a senior home, right in the center of town there, at the Y and Genesee. She was born at the same time as the Manhattan Project, which was our development of atomic energy and the atomic bomb. So she called herself Atomic Baby, and she showed a very beautiful piece at your gallery a number of years ago. She exhibited Atomic Baby, which unfortunately was destroyed in its return to the States. Carol started her graduate or her college work at Syracuse University, and for reasons I probably won't go into, she left Syracuse and studied at Hunter College, then went to Bennington for her graduate work and studied with Paul Feely and Tony Smith. She was extremely self-sufficient. She learned the trade from her mom. Her mom was a professional secretary and was a school secretary. When you're involved with education, you always want to be a very good friend of the school secretary. And I did my best to ingratiate myself when I taught at Hunter with the chairman's department secretary. But Carol was a very skilled typist, and she could do shorthand and all of that. And she started working at Hunter. She was the secretary to the man who ran the graduate program, a sculptor named Harry Stinson. He was, sort of traditional sculptor, a very nice man. And then when Gene Goosen came to Hunter, he hired Carol, and Carol taught at Hunter for a while. And of course, she worked on her painting always very creatively, independently. She was very involved with numbers and structure and also random possibilities. And one of her MOs was to grid out the canvas or the paper, and um, she would deal out playing cards, a playing card deck. She would arbitrarily assign values to the different cards and then deal them out, and they would be the indicator of the angle or the color that would occur in the different sections of the grid in the painting. She's currently in a show at the Aldrich Museum of Contemporary Art. I just visited there Monday, and her work looks fantastic. I sent Arnaud pictures, a couple of pictures of her work in the show. They produced a beautiful catalog. The show was originated by Lucy Lepard, a very important influence in American contemporary art. And she did this show about 50 years ago of 26 women, including Carol, Alice Aycock, Mary Miss, Jackie Windsor, to mention just a few of the artists in the show. I knew all of those artists, and Alice and Mary Miss, Alice Aycock and Mary Miss also taught at Hunter for a while. Both, all of them wonderful artists. And the show now at the Aldrich includes the original 26, along with some young women artists. So it's quite a beautiful show, and it was a delight to get to see it. Carol and I were together 43 years. It was my privilege, and we worked together on collaborations like Masks and Mask 2. We worked as a team. We farmed it. We raised Jersey dairy animals. Carol was a citizen. We teased her. We called her Citizen Kinne because she was such an activist in the community. She headed up the town planning board, and she and two others designed a comprehensive plan for the town, which became a model for the county. So she was not only an influential artist, but an influential politician. We both were very involved in the town. I served on the town board for 8 years, and it was my honor and pleasure to do that. And as I said, we collaborated on quite a number of pieces in addition to the work that we did together. And it was my privilege to be Bob in Bob's Draw, one of the paintings that, yeah, there it is. There's Bob's Draw. One of the paintings in the show at the Aldrich Museum of Contemporary Art. Scott, do you want to take over?
you hear us? Oh, Scott, your mic is cut.
I was listening to Bob and I was sort of shocked at how little I know of Carol's youth. I did know that she lived on my street. I didn't realize she went to school a block from my house. We were born pretty much the same time. I was born in October 42. So all those years, I never knew that. But when Arnaud asked me to talk today, I thought I just rooted through the materials I have about Carol, and lo and behold, I found a catalog that we did at Utica College. We did a big show of Carol's work in 1979. I can't believe that's 43 years ago, but big show actually. And I interviewed Carol for that show. And I thought what I could add to this gathering maybe is to read a couple of excerpts from the interview, because we talked about work that I think when people look at what Carol left behind, there's a certain kind of work that she did that there's no evidence of except the tale of how it was made. So I want to just read you two bits from this interview that we did way back when. And the first is just a general, I was a kid trying to figure out whether I could curate art shows. I mean, I didn't curate this show, Carol curated it, but I was trying to organize a show. And I had very basic questions, one of which was, how did you get interested in art? And this is Carol's response. In an undefined way, I had been looking to be an artist probably from my adolescence on up. It had to do with wanting a self-sufficient life, wanting to be on my own, taking care of myself. Being an artist somehow answered those kinds of personal needs. It also had a lot to do with my interest in mathematics. I got into mathematics because I had this very enthusiastic teacher in high school geometry. Later, we got into calculus, modular theory, fairly sophisticated mathematical ideas. Art was a way of dealing with certain kinds of conceptual issues that were raised by mathematics, a way to follow through on those questions. And then later we talked about, she had done a work that was part of a series of works made outdoors, that she made one for the Utica College show. But I asked her, this is my question, in the early 70s, you moved outdoors and got into a series of paintings on walls, on manhole covers, on stones. That decision seems almost calculated to result in works that get destroyed, or at least biodegraded. Carol's answer: changed or transformed beyond my control. I accepted that part of them, but it wasn't the goal. The goal was just to be there. First, there were 10 triangles on trees. I thought, wouldn't it be nice to go out into the woods, which are pretty chaotic, and see if I could discover a circle in the trees someplace and define it with these triangles. I don't think any other human being ever saw that piece. The deer ate the color off the triangles. The next year I was in Manhattan. I had lived in my neighborhood a long time and I wanted to do something outdoors there. I didn't really know what it was going to be, so my mind started grouping things. And one of the groups I noticed were these walls with signs and announcements stuck all over them. The walls were public property, not in anybody's personal space. I watched these areas for a couple of weeks and chose the sites. Then I made the paintings on clear contact paper, thinking I could stick them over the stuff already on the walls. I made the paintings, made up the announcements, and sent them out before I even knew if I was really going to get the paintings up on those walls. The night before the date on the announcement, Bob and I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and went out. It was very cold and the stickum on the contact paper wouldn't work, but we managed by stapling the images up. It was a beautiful day and a lot of people turned out. Even the New York Daily News showed up. Then I was back upstate, spending the summer working for the Norwich Evening Sun. I got laid off in October and I had a month to kill, so I decided to do an outdoor piece. I wanted it to be in some public space, but around here there's public spaces are hard to come by, I decided on the state lands over in Brookfield, which is a big foresty area. And I went out and got 28 stones, painted them, and arranged them in the woods in an acre-sized square. I say to her, "You seem very interested in that moment where natural things and your mathematical thinking collide." "Carol,
Yeah.
I'm into making them collide." "How about the manhole covers?" "I'm back in New York now with a part-time job at Livingston College in New Jersey. Again, I want to do something outside. For 8 years, I've been walking up and down Broadway where there are all these hexagonal manhole covers. I decided, why not do something on them? I measured 28 covers and made stencils to fill them. Then Bob and I did the painting. It took a few nights to do it. We had to be careful since it wasn't legal. The police started looking at us one time and we pretended we were necking in a doorway. I had announced the show, and this time too, it turned out to be a nice day and a lot of my friends were around looking at the paintings. I also brought up here, I don't know if this is one of the stones from the stone piece in the woods that she made.
No,
No, it's
no,
not?
they're gone. We went out to visit and find them, but they were gone. But that's from the same period. And that's beautiful. That's a beautiful piece.
Yeah. Carol's
Yeah.
stuff is all over our house here, so we
Yeah.
live with her all the time. So that's my shtick.
Oh, thank you, Scott. So I thought to show some images from the works that Carol showed at my gallery during the years, because together, her and Bob made several exhibitions. And Carol went once in Paris with Bob years ago. So I need to share my screen for that.
That painting is in the this is Cad Yellow from 1969. And this painting is in the show at the Aldrich Museum of Contemporary Art, along with Bob's draw.
So that's the name of the show, which happens currently in the Aldrich Contemporary Art Museum, which is, as you said, a reconstruction from Lucy Lippard's exhibition.
Yes, correct.
So that's a portrait of Carol. And at the homage exhibition dedicated to her, I had a text written by Carol about her, and thought perhaps that it would be interesting to read it. And as I said to Katy, Carol had an accurate way to write. And I think her writing needs an accurate accent. So I asked Katy to write it, to read it, sorry.
Okay, so I'm reading this statement that Arnaud just gave me by Carol. I was born in Utica, New York on December 14th, 1942, just 12 days after the first nuclear reaction had taken place in Chicago, in a handball court under the University of Chicago. Thus, my identity as Atomic Baby was formed. The Cold War marked my formative years, ducking and covering in the school hallway, watching the skies during the Cuban crisis, and half expecting to get hit by an atomic bomb any minute. I attended schools in New Hartford, New York, Newtonville, New York, Mount Vernon, New York, and Bronxville, New York, graduating from Bronxville Senior School in June 1960. I then went to Syracuse University, University of Buffalo, and Hunter College in New York City, where I got selected to attend Bennington College in Vermont for a term. I returned to Hunter and received a BFA in painting in 1965. I went back to Bennington for graduate work and received an MA in painting and sculpture. I settled into a loft on Chambers Street, NYC, was making art and teaching at Hunter College. After 2 years, I moved to a loft on Broadway and continued painting and teaching. When the economy hit the fan in 1975, I lost my job and eventually found work in Central New York at the Gallery Association in Hamilton, New York, making crates for traveling exhibitions. I had purchased farmland in Columbus, New York in 1973 after my mother died and left me a little money, and put up a pole building in which I lived and made art. After a few years of life as a carpenter, I got a teaching job at Colgate University in 1980. After about 10 years living below the poverty line, things began to look up. At Colgate, I met many interesting artists and became interested in using a computer for art making. I was encouraged to create a digital studio class and had the opportunity to design the Digital Studio in Art and Art History's Little Hall that opened in January of 2001. I've participated in many group exhibitions and collaborations around the country, and most recently in Paris. My recent one-person show was Atomic Baby in Colgate University's Clifford Gallery. I have also participated in many NIFA and NISCA panels and was an official observer at the Governor's Conference on Art and Technology, March 1988. I was a board member at Sculpture Space in Utica, New York for 12 years. I live with my husband, Robert Huot, and 4 Samoyeds in the town of Columbus in Shenango County, New York. After retiring from Colgate University in 2005, I moved into my new studio on my property and have been making art ever since. In my spare time, I enjoy doggy activities with my Samoyeds.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
So this one was, I think, the first work that Carol showed at my gallery, which was refrigerator poems that that she did. I don't know if it was a collaboration with Bob. And it's
Well, Carol had these magnetic words, on little magnetic rectangles, and she would arrange them on her refrigerator. So they were kind of, again, partially accident, and but once again, you know, Carol, always creative and imaginative, and I think, Arnaud, didn't you do a series of poems, like interactive poems?
yes, it was on the structure of a Japanese poem, and it was a collaboration between different people with very short lines. And
Right.
you participate, and Carol also. Yes, it was called Free Renga. Renga is the name of the poem.
Yeah, I did one also.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this one is one of the poems. I don't know if you can read because the photo is not so good. Oh, sorry. But I think it's strange and great.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So this one was one of the work that she showed at 4 Carols plus at my gallery. And this work was is called Necessity, the Mother of Invention. And it's made of fallout shelters. And Carol wrote a note about this piece. And would you mind to read it?
I'm going to read it.
Thank you, Katy.
Necessity is the Mother of Invention, 1994. Images, inkjet printer, acetate and rag paper, text, dot matrix printer, and rag paper. My earliest web explorations were before the internet had browsers, images, and websites. The internet was one big database. Most of the sites were government data collections, and there were many places to explore. All were just pages of text with internal links to related material. It was very easy to get lost while following a link and hard to find the way back to the original page. Almost the most interesting was the patents database, where I was able to access patents for personal fallout shelters. They were all in proper patent text. Patent was in quotes, no pictures in parentheses, and I made up the images from the descriptions. Each piece in this installation consists of an atomic bomb image with an acetate overlay of my interpretation of the description, and then the actual text from the patent description on the side.
So here are 2 examples of the fallout shelters. And I translated the text, and I must say I was amazed by the intelligence and the naivete at the same time of the work, of the conception. So this,
Yeah, there's Atomic Baby.
so there's also a note that Carol wrote.
Okay, this is for a piece, Atomic Baby, 1989, inkjet print, 49 panels. It's called 1942 Nuclear Chain Reaction, 12-2-42. For the first time, a nuclear chain reaction was achieved in an atomic pile. The chain reaction occurred at the University of Chicago under the direction of Enrico Fermi. 12 days later, I was born, a child of the nuclear age. This coincidence was the inspiration for a series entitled Atomic Baby. My childhood was shaped by the Cold War, air raid drills in school, newsreels featuring test bomb blasts, instructions for duck and cover, and not too comforting films about how to protect against fallout. Public fallout shelters appeared all over the place, and there was lots of information available about how to build a personal fallout shelter. Fear of the Russians was ever present. After the Cold War ended, nuclear fear didn't end. Meltdowns in power plants and a provocative foreign policy that made everyone want nuclear power for self-protection kept the nuclear age going. These were the events that informed the Atomic Baby works. The piece installed here is made of 49 panels hung in a 7x7 grid with a picture of me, the Atomic Baby, on a shelf in the middle. The prints were created on my Amiga computer with a program that created a poster-size image from a smaller one. Each of the panels was printed on my inkjet printer and then numbered, so I could put the pieces together in the correct pattern. The resulting crystal-like patterns indicate how the printer dealt with color gradations in the original. When trying to make another copy of the prints, I discovered that each time the program ran, it read the data differently.
That's a detail.
There she is. She made this with an Amiga She made this with an Amiga, and we couldn't regenerate the parts that were damaged because we weren't able to boot up. We didn't. The Amiga was done when we tried to recreate the damaged panels in Atomic Baby, so we were never able to restore it.
No. So does it exist today, this work?
Well, what's left of it does, yeah,
Uh-huh.
but at least half a dozen of the panels were destroyed.
So,
Yeah.
so this one is titled 4 and 20 Blackbirds. And I think it's both an interactive animation and it started from a large painting. And that's what Carol wrote about it.
Okay, I'll read. 4 and 20 Blackbirds, Interactive Animation 2006. Website, computer-generated flash animation. A work in progress. This work is a drawn version of a large painting of the same title. The drawings were scanned and then arranged in a grid on the computer. With Dreamweaver, a web authoring program, I was able to make rollovers of selected elements in the grid, so that when you run the cursor over the images, animations appear.
So 4 and 20 Blackbirds is on display in what is now called the Kinne Memorial Columbus Center. Citizen Kinne is honored by this designation. It's the Kinne Memorial is the former Columbus Town Hall, which was neglected and then put up for auction. And I bought it and restored it and dedicated it to Carol, and it contains a lot of her work. And 4 and 20 Blackbirds is a major part of the exhibition of her work.
So this one, the photo is not very clear, sorry, but it's from 2003, and its name is Kosovo Landscape. So it's made of oil on canvas. And again, Carol wrote some little note about it. Thank you.
Before I read it, I just have to say how odd it is, not odd, uncanny it is to revisit this work in this day and age under new atomic threats, the war in Ukraine. It's
yes,
the power of Carol's work to touch all this. So this is Carol Kinne, Kosovo Landscape 2003, oil on canvas installation. I made this painting for more footage that I found on the internet of US bombing raids targeting various sites in Kosovo and Serbia. The images come from surveillance photos taken from airplanes as they were dropping bombs on the countryside below. I was struck by the similarity of the Kosovo landscape and my own in central New York State. Several pieces resulted in which I tried to imagine what it would be like to have tanks, bombers, and artillery invading the farming community in which I live. I also made several flip books inserting war machinery into scenes from my farm.
So this is one work from a series of 13 small dramas And it was shown in an exhibition in support of Ryo Takahashi, who at this time was threatened with expulsion from France. So that was Carol's choice for this exhibition. And this one is an icon painting from 1997. It's made of 12 panels. And it's also with the text by Carol, and it somehow relates to the flip books, and but maybe we can read it if you agree.
Carol Kinne, Icons and Flip Books, 1997. Some years ago, during a brief career in newspaper advertising, I was introduced to clip art, those wonderful, awful, ubiquitous images packed into giant books that we use to illustrate a copy. I discovered that it was pretty easy to mix and match the parts, and that meaning was easily manipulated by the context. This is one of the reasons why my newspaper career was brief. I rediscovered clip art with my computer and am indebted to the anonymous clip art artist whose drawings I discovered in Genie's is this Amiga forum among the public domain files. Since then, I have been collecting simple images, signs and symbols, and making small works with them. I continue to work with the recombination of disparate images and altered meanings inspired by my newspaper experience. The paintings, oil on canvas, are to be hung in a grid. I prefer to have someone other than me arrange the grid so that each installation and thus meaning is different. The original prints for the flip books were created on Amiga computer and printed on my elderly Xerox 4020 inkjet printer. The flip books were printed and bound by Metzler Printing in Utica, New York, and partially funded with a grant from Colgate University, Hamilton, New York, USA. Genie, I think this is a footnote, that's what it is. Okay, Genie was a pre-browser database on the internet in the early days that contained a lot of information of all kinds. The icons came mostly from font collections that I found. These were essentially the only images on the net. All the rest was text-based.
So those were 4 flip books. I think Carol made more than that. I'm sure that she did more than that. And I can show you a little animation from one of the flip book. I need to change the screen.
Rock out. The Pompidou has, I think, these 4 flip books in its collection. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct. Exactly. The Kandinsky Library at Pompidou. And this work is titled With All Necessary Forces, Still Life with Weapons. And it's from 1993. It's 4 panels. And this one is the little triptych, which is exhibited currently at the Galerie.
Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, you can see her love of paint and color and her imagination and her a little bit of her sense of humor, I think. I think it's a wonderful little piece.
So the following photos, images, they are photos that Bob sent, who came from Carol's studio. The photos were made recently, I think. So I just show them. I have no more information than the image.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a small piece, I suppose.
Carol, one of Carol's favorite artists, one of her inspirations was Sonia Delaunay.
Yes.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And so, and this one also. Yes.
Mm. Mm.
And so I showed the collaborative works that were shown at the gallery, and this one was the Red Classic, one of the series, and it went together with the original, this little original from the Van Eyck.
Yeah, we did this series called Red Classic series that grew out of reading Kenneth Clark's The Nude, which was a study of representation of the nude, primarily in Western art. And so part of it was kind of like, well, as senior citizens, our function as senior citizens is to take pills and wear hearing aids. And we thought, hey, well, maybe senior citizens, maybe there's a little more to us than that. And so we decided to assume as best we could poses from the history of the representation of the nude. And this was part of that series, the Red Classic series. Then we went on to do a series of pictures based on the red figure in Greek pottery. So we called it the Red Figure series. And then eventually I did a working with Ed Hennig and Photoshop, and we did a series, Death and the Maiden. And I don't know, Arnaud, if you've got any of those images or not, but.
Yes, I can show the following images. So this is Adam. This is Eve. This is a series of 4. And this one is from Death and the Maiden. It's another one. And that's the image from Blue Dots, which is also in the show. And that's the final image from my computer.
Yeah, I haunted local used clothing stores to put together these costumes that were, you know, really inspired originally by Carol's paintings on paper plates, her mask series. By the way, Pascal referred to Carol in so many words as my child bride. That's supposed to be humorous.
Your trophy wife, right?
My yeah, my trophy wife, but my child bride, because he sees me as this decrepit old man, and these beautiful images of Carol as a middle-aged, senior woman, because she was in her, you know, mid to late 60s when we shot them. But of course, I'm so old and decrepit, she, you know, she looks like a child bride, right?
You're funny. Bob, I have to interrupt and tell you that when Diana visited New York,
Yeah.
we decided, Bill, me and Diana decided to go to the Met. And, you know, we had vaguely something in mind, but we just started bumbling around, and we came into the room with all the Etruscan pottery that you've been telling me about for years, with all the erections all over the place. I mean, all over the place, on
Yeah.
cups, on bowls, on plates, on saucers, and they're doing this and they're chasing that and they're da-da-da-da. And we went, what? Oh, wow. That's what he's been talking about. They're so
Yeah.
gaudy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Diana, what do you think?
There's one that we did, the Seder. Do you have that one, Arnaud, the Seder?
I'm a little lost in the conversation.
I was saying the Etruscan pottery,
Mhm,
that
mhm.
so many of his, with the big phalluses. When Diana was visiting New York, we went to the Met.
Oh, and you saw
And
so
we
many
came
of
up,
them. Mm.
and we couldn't believe it. It's like, this stuff is so out there, crazy, body erotic.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
Bob's been telling me about it for years. I wanted to hear what Diana has to say about it.
Well, I think you pretty much wrapped it up.
Come on.
The thing is that it's in a gallery that you have to walk through to get to almost anything.
Yeah.
And I've walked by it 100 times and never paid any attention to it. So this was a great event for the three of us.
Mm, mm.
But
Yeah.
With the you know, knowing that you had referenced this in your work.
Well, some of the imagery is fantastic, you know? It's really fun and inspiring, for me anyway.
I guess the story is, I'm talking to Arnaud and Pascal, the story is that the men would get together for these parties,
Uh-huh.
these banquets.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
obviously there were prostitutes or whatever, but they served everything on these crazy dishes where, you know, men are running around the edges chasing women, and they've got these erections going on and whatever. So they're little on this. I mean, the erections are relatively big, but I mean, the figures on the plates are not that big. So that's what Bill's saying, is you can walk right by them and then you look and go,
Yes.
Makes you want to clean your plate.
oh, yes, well, hadn't thought of it that way.
Diana, you were about to say something.
well, I think it's all been said now. Yeah, I was just going to say that the drawings are so fine and small that, yeah, when you're just walking through that great big room filled with all the Greek vases, if you don't stop and look at the each piece, you won't necessarily see the drawings. I mean, you won't necessarily see the erections or what's really going on the vases, but Katie already said that, so.
I have a question for Bob.
Yes, sir.
The work that you and Carol did collaboratively was often so playful and provocative. And I'm thinking not only of these works, but also your dirty movies that we recently digitized. But my sense was I was never clear who was the provocateur. And I suspect both, but I wouldn't be surprised if Carol wasn't, a major force in that direction.
Well, I can only speak for me, and she was always an inspiration for me, I must say. And she was always, I would say, an enthusiastic partner. I said something to you many years ago. We were speaking about one of the quote unquote erotic films. And I said, sometimes I wondered how enthusiastic Carol was about her participation. And you said, oh, she was, which was very reassuring.
Which I said based on how I saw the films, obviously, because I didn't,
Yeah.
I wasn't there. I didn't know.
Yeah, from viewing the film. And I have to say, I've worked with both Katy and Bill. They've both been really important to me. Bill digitized many of my films, and Katy produced the digital prints for Red Classic, Red Figure, and Death and the Maiden. So both Bill and Katy are important players in my life and in the production of my art. And I thank you both very much. Privileged to work with both of you, wonderful artists. Thank you.
Thank you. Privilege is ours, I can say.
So, did we pay a little homage to Carol?
Deservedly so.
Okay.
Scott, is
She's a
it possible?
wonderful artist. And I hope that her work gets more and more attention. I'm hoping to work with Ed Heading and produce a new website for her. Her website was lost, and we've got to create a new website for her. And hopefully that'll be a project coming up very soon.
Yes.
And maybe there'll be a link to Scott's interview. I'd like to read the whole thing.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you have any more of those catalogs, Scott?
No.
Your sound's off.
Mike.
I will look and see what I've got.
Okay.
And Bill, if I find one, I'll email you and send, or you can give me your
Send one
address.
to Bill and Katy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have to go
Okay.
because I'm looking and participating with you on my friend Phil Metzger's computer, and Phil has to go, and he doesn't want to leave me his computer, so I've got to say goodbye. It was a great pleasure to be with y'all, and
Thank you,
And
Bob.
Hey, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Arnaud.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Hey, Bill, what's your email address?
Bill@billbrand.net.
computer. Done. Yeah.
So,
Thanks.